The DNA test was supposed to be a birthday present. My sister Rachel bought it for me as a joke, one of those $99 ancestry kits that promises to tell you where your great-great-grandparents came from and whether you're genetically predisposed to hating cilantro. We'd laughed about it over birthday cake, making bets about what percentage Irish we'd turn out to be, whether we'd discover some exotic heritage that would explain why neither of us could tan. 6 weeks later, I opened my results and discovered that Rachel wasn't my sister at all. The app was cheerful about it. Bright colors, friendly fonts, like it was delivering good news. DNA relatives found, the banner announced. Below it, a list of matches. Second cousins, third cousins, distant relations scattered across the country. And one match that made no sense. Rachel Harper. Predicted relationship, half-sibling. Shared DNA, 26.3%. I stared at the screen for a long time. Half-sibling. Not full sibling. Not the sister I'd shared a bedroom with for 18 years, fought with over bathroom time, stayed up late talking to about boys and dreams and everything in between. Half. Have you ever received news that completely rewrote your understanding of who you are? I'm not talking about a surprise or a disappointment. I mean something that made you question whether anything you believed about your life was true. If you have, you'll understand the vertigo I felt in that moment. The ground didn't just shift, it disappeared entirely. Let me know in the comments if you've been there, because I'm still trying to find my footing. My name is Maya Harper. I'm 32 years old, and until 6 months ago, I thought I knew exactly who my family was. My father, David Harper, was a history professor at the local university. My mother, Linda, was a pediatric nurse who'd retired early to help raise her grandchildren. They'd been married for 37 years, high school sweethearts who'd built a life together in the same town where they'd grown up. Rachel was their firstborn, 3 years older than me, the responsible one, the one who followed the rules, got good grades, married her college boyfriend, and produced 2 perfect grandchildren on schedule. I was the wild card, the one who dropped out of college to travel, who'd had 3 careers by 30, who'd never quite figured out how to be the daughter my parents expected. But despite our differences, Rachel and I were close, sisters, bound by blood and history and all the shared moments that make a family. Except now, apparently, we weren't. I called her immediately. "Did you get your results?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Just open them. I'm 62% British and Irish, which is boring but expected. Oh, and apparently I have the gene for straight hair, which, obviously. What about you?" "Rachel, check your DNA relatives." "My what?" "The relative section, the matches." I heard her tapping on her phone. Then silence. "Maya," she said slowly, "why does it say we're half-siblings?" "I don't know." "That's not possible. We have the same parents. We grew up in the same house." "I know. It's a mistake. These tests make mistakes all the time. Remember that article about the twins who got different results? That was ethnicity percentages. This is shared DNA. It's not the same thing." More silence. I could hear her breathing, fast and shallow. "What are you saying?" she finally asked. "I'm saying one of us has a different father." The words hung in the air between us, impossible and undeniable. "That's insane," Rachel whispered. "Mom would never." "I know." "Dad would never." "I know." "Then how?" "I don't know, Rachel, but we need to find out." That night, I lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, trying to make the numbers make sense. Half-siblings share approximately 25% of their DNA. Full siblings share closer to 50%. There was no margin of error that could explain this discrepancy. No lab mistake, no sample contamination, No convenient explanation that would let us go back to the family we thought we had. One of us had a different father, which meant one of our parents had lied to us our entire lives. The question was, which one? We decided to ask our mother first, not because we thought she was more likely to have lied. If anything, the opposite. Our mother was pathologically honest, the kind of person who returned extra change at the grocery store and couldn't tell a white lie without blushing. The idea of her having an affair seemed absurd, but she was also the one more likely to know the truth, whatever it was. We drove to our parents' house on a Sunday afternoon. Dad was at a faculty meeting, convenient, or maybe we'd planned it that way. I don't remember anymore. Those first few days after the results are blurry, like a fever dream I can't quite shake. Mom was in the kitchen when we arrived, making the lemon bars she always made when we visited. She looked up with a smile that faded when she saw our faces. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Is everyone okay? The kids?" "Everyone's fine," Rachel said. "We just need to talk to you about something." We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd done homework, eaten countless family dinners, celebrated birthdays and holidays, and ordinary Tuesdays. Mom wiped her hands on her apron and joined us, her forehead creased with concern. "You're scaring me," she said. "What is it?" I pulled up the DNA results on my phone, slid it across the table. "Rachel got me a DNA test for my birthday," I said. "We both took it, and the results say we're half-siblings." Mom looked at the screen. I watched her face, searching for surprise, confusion, denial, any of the reactions an innocent person would have. Instead, I saw recognition. And then, I saw fear. "Mom?" Rachel's voice was sharp. "What's going on?" "I need to call your father." "No." I reached across the table, stopping her from standing. "Tell us now, which one of us has a different father?" "Maya? Is it me? Am I not Dad's daughter?" "It's not that simple." "Then explain it. Make it simple." She was crying now. My mother, who I'd seen cry maybe 3 times in my entire life, was sitting at her kitchen table with tears streaming down her face. "Neither of you is your father's biological daughter," she said. The words didn't register at first. They were sounds without meaning, syllables that refused to assemble into sense. "What?" Rachel whispered. "David is sterile. He always has been. We found out before we got married, when we first started trying to have children." "But we exist," I said stupidly. "We're here." "Yes, you're here." Mom wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Because we found another way." "What other way? A sperm donor?" "IVF?" "Not exactly." "Then what?" She was silent for a long moment. I could see her weighing options, calculating how much to tell us, how to frame the truth in a way that might be survivable. "Your father had a brother," she finally said. "Michael. He died before either of you was born." I knew about Uncle Michael. I'd grown up seeing his picture on the mantle, hearing stories about Dad's older brother who'd been killed in a car accident at 25, a tragedy that had shaped our father's life, made him the serious, careful man he'd become. But I didn't understand what he had to do with this. "Michael agreed to help us," Mom continued. "When we found out David couldn't have children, Michael offered to be the donor. It was supposed to be simple, anonymous. No one would ever know." "Wait," Rachel held up a hand. "You're saying our biological father is Dad's dead brother?" "Yes." "Both of us? We have the same biological father?" "Yes. Michael was the donor for both pregnancies." I stared at her, trying to process what she was telling us. "Then why do our DNA results say we're half-siblings? If we have the same biological father, we should be full siblings." Mom's face crumpled. "Because you don't have the same mother." The room went silent. "What?" I heard myself say. "Maya, honey, I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times, but we promised. We swore we'd never." "What do you mean we don't have the same mother?" My voice was rising, cracking. "You're our mother. You raised us. I raised you. I loved you. I am your mother in every way that matters." She reached for my hand. I pulled away. "But I didn't give birth to you, Maya. Someone else did." I don't remember leaving the house. I don't remember the drive home, or the hours I spent sitting in my apartment, or the calls from Rachel that I didn't answer. All I remember is the feeling of everything I knew, everything I was, dissolving like sand in water. I wasn't David Harper's daughter. I wasn't Linda Harper's daughter. I wasn't even Rachel's full sister. I was someone else entirely, and I had no idea who that someone was. It took 3 days before I could talk to my mother again. 3 days of ignored calls, deleted voicemails, and a grief so profound I couldn't name it. I wasn't mourning a death. Everyone I loved was still alive. But I was mourning something, the loss of certainty, the death of the story I'd told myself about who I was and where I came from. When I finally called her back, my voice was hollow. "Tell me everything," I said. "From the beginning. No more lies." She took a deep breath. And then she told me. Michael Harper was 25 when he agreed to help his brother have children. He was young, healthy, unmarried, the perfect donor for a couple who desperately wanted a family. He gave what he could, and 9 months later, Rachel was born. David and Linda were overjoyed. They had their daughter, their family, the life they'd always wanted, and no one ever needed to know that David wasn't Rachel's biological father. But then they decided they wanted another child. Michael was gone by then, killed in the accident that would become family legend. They could have used a sperm bank, found another donor, but David couldn't bear the thought of his children having different biological fathers. He wanted them to be full siblings, connected by blood in a way he could never be. So they found another solution. Michael had a girlfriend when he died, Mom said. Sarah. They'd been together for 2 years. She was devastated when he died. We all were, but she was also— She paused. I could hear her struggling to find the words. She was pregnant. Everything stopped. Sarah was pregnant with Michael's child when he died. She didn't know what to do. She was 23, alone, grieving. She wasn't ready to be a mother. "So she gave the baby to you?" I said flatly. "We adopted you, legally. Everything was done properly, but we agreed, all of us, including Sarah, that it would be better if no one knew. If you grew up believing you were David and Linda's biological daughter, just like Rachel." Better for who? For everyone. For you especially. We didn't want you to feel different, didn't want you to grow up with questions about your identity, about where you came from. So instead, I grew up with lies. "We grew up with a family," Mom said quietly, "with parents who loved you, a sister who adored you, a life that was safe and stable and full of everything we could give you. Everything except the truth." She didn't argue. She couldn't. "Where is she now?" I asked. "Sarah, my biological mother? I don't know. After the adoption was finalized, she moved away, asked us not to contact her. She said it would be easier, for her and for you, if she wasn't part of your life. But she could be found if I wanted to find her. I suppose so. But Maya, does Rachel know all of this?" "We told her yesterday. She's processing." "We're all processing, Mom." The word felt foreign in my mouth. "Or should I call you something else now? What's the protocol for finding out your mother isn't your mother?" "Maya, please." "I need to go. I need time to think. I understand. But please know, whatever you decide, whatever happens next, I love you. I've loved you since the moment I held you. Being your mother has been the greatest joy of my life. And nothing, not DNA, not biology, not any of this can change that." I hung up without responding because I didn't know what to say. That night, I started searching. Sarah, Michael's girlfriend, my biological mother. I didn't have much to go on, just a first name and a timeline, but I had determination and grief and a desperate need to understand who I really was. I didn't know then that finding Sarah would unravel even more lies. I didn't know that the secret my parents had kept was just the beginning. I didn't know anything at all. Finding someone who doesn't want to be found is harder than movies make it seem. I had a first name, Sarah, and a time frame, 32 years ago. I knew she'd been Michael's girlfriend, that she lived in our town, that she'd been around 23 when she gave birth to me. But 32 years is a long time. People move, they marry, change their names, build lives in places no one would think to look. I started with the obvious: social media searches, public records, the kind of digital detective work anyone can do with enough patience. I found 17 Sarahs who'd lived in our area in the early 1990s. One by one, I eliminated them. Wrong age, wrong timeline, no connection to Michael Harper. After 2 weeks, I was ready to give up. Then I found the newspaper article. It was buried in the digital archives of the local paper, a brief mention in the obituary section dated 6 months after Michael's death. Not an obituary itself, but a notice about a memorial scholarship established in his name. The Michael David Harper Memorial Scholarship, funded by contributions from family, friends, and his loving girlfriend, Sarah Blackwood, will be awarded annually to a student pursuing studies in environmental science. Sarah Blackwood. I had a full name. The search went faster after that. Sarah Blackwood had left our town shortly after the adoption was finalized. She'd moved to Oregon, finished her degree, eventually became a professor of environmental studies at a small liberal arts college. She'd never married, never had other children, at least not that the public record showed. And according to her faculty page, she was still teaching at the same college she joined 20 years ago. I found her email address, wrote 17 drafts of an introduction before settling on something simple. Dear Professor Blackwood, my name is Maya Harper. I was born in April 1992. I believe we may be related, and I would like the opportunity to speak with you if you're willing. I understand this may be unexpected, and I respect whatever decision you make. But I recently learned some information about my family history that has raised questions I can't answer on my own. If you're open to a conversation, please reach out at your convenience. Sincerely, Maya. I hit send before I could change my mind. 3 days later, she responded, Maya, I've been waiting for this email for 32 years. Yes, we should talk, but not over email. Some conversations need to happen face to face. I have a sabbatical coming up. I can be in town next month. Would you be willing to meet? There are things you need to know, things I should have told you a long time ago. Sarah. I read the message a dozen times, trying to decipher its tone. Was she nervous, eager, afraid? And what did she mean, things I should have told you? What else could there possibly be to tell? I agreed to meet her. Of course I did. I couldn't have stayed away if I'd tried. But I also prepared myself for disappointment. For a woman who'd given me up and moved on, who had nothing to offer but apologies and explanations for a decision made 3 decades ago. I didn't prepare for what she actually told me. I couldn't have. No one could have. Sarah Blackwood was smaller than I'd imagined. I don't know what I expected. Someone imposing, maybe? Someone whose presence would fill a room, the way the idea of her had filled my mind for weeks. But the woman who walked into the coffee shop was slight, gray-haired, with nervous hands that couldn't stop moving. She looked like me. I hadn't expected that either. I'd spent 32 years being told I looked like my father, David's dark eyes, David's serious expression, and I'd believed it because I had no reason not to. But standing in front of Sarah, I saw myself in her jawline, in the shape of her nose, in the way she tilted her head when she was thinking. Maya, she said. Not a question. She knew me on sight, the same way I knew her. Sarah. We stood there for a moment, two strangers who shared blood and nothing else. Then she gestured to a table in the corner, and we sat down and she started talking. "I need you to know," she said, "that I never wanted to give you up. What happened, the adoption, the secrecy, it wasn't my choice." "What do you mean? My mother said you agreed." "Said you weren't ready to be a parent. Your mother said what she needed to say to protect herself, to protect all of them." Something cold crawled down my spine. "I don't understand." Sarah took a deep breath. Her hands were shaking. "I was 23 when Michael died. We were in love, really in love, the kind of love you build a life around. We were going to get married. We were going to have a family together. And then he was killed in the accident." He wasn't killed in an accident. The words didn't register at first. "What?" "Michael didn't die in a car crash, Maya. That's what they told everyone. What they told the police, the newspapers, even me at first. But it wasn't true." "Then how did he die?" Sarah's eyes met mine. They were my eyes, I realized. The same shade of brown, the same sadness I saw in the mirror. "Michael killed himself." The coffee shop noise faded to static. I could see Sarah's mouth moving, could tell she was still talking, but the words weren't reaching me. Suicide. My biological father, the man I'd never known, whose genes I carried, whose existence had shaped my entire life, had killed himself? Why? I finally managed. "Because he found out something he couldn't live with." Sarah's voice was barely a whisper now. "Something about his family, about your family." Here's where things start to get complicated, more complicated than I could have imagined. Sarah was about to tell me something that would change everything I thought I knew, not just about Michael, but about my entire family. Before I continue, I need to ask, have you ever learned something about your family history that changed how you saw everything? A secret that rewrote the past? I'm still trying to make sense of what Sarah told me, and I'd love to know if anyone else has been through something similar. Drop your thoughts in the comments. "What did he find out?" I asked. "David isn't Michael's biological brother." "What?" "They were raised as brothers, same parents, same home, same family. But Michael discovered, a few months before he died, that David was adopted, that their parents had taken him in as an infant and never told anyone." "I don't understand what that has to do with Maya." Sarah reached across the table and took my hand. "David wasn't just adopted. He was the result of an affair. His biological father was Harold Ashworth." The name hit me like a physical blow. Harold Ashworth, the patriarch of the wealthiest family in our town, the man who'd built an empire, whose name was on buildings and scholarships and half the charitable foundations in the state, the man who'd been dead for 20 years. "Michael found proof," Sarah continued, "documents, letters. He confronted his parents and they admitted everything. David was Harold Ashworth's illegitimate son, given up at birth to avoid scandal. The Harpers adopted him and raised him as their own. But what does this have to do with Michael's death?" "Because Michael also discovered something else, something worse." She paused. I could see her gathering courage, preparing to deliver a blow she knew would devastate me. Harold Ashworth didn't just father David. "What?" "Michael's mother, the woman who raised him, had an affair with Harold when David was a baby. Michael was the result, which means David and Michael weren't just brothers legally. They were half-brothers biologically. But that would mean... It means David and Michael shared a father, Harold Ashworth, which means their children, you and Rachel, are..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "We're more related than we thought," I said numbly. "Rachel and I, because our fathers were half-brothers." "Yes, but that's not all. There's more?" "Maya, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to be the one to tell you this." "Tell me what?" Sarah's grip on my hand tightened. Michael didn't donate sperm to help his brother. He didn't volunteer to be a donor out of generosity. He was coerced. Coerced how? David found out about Michael's discovery, about Harold Ashworth, about the family secrets, and he used that information as leverage. Leverage for what? To force Michael to be the donor. David was furious, furious that Michael had uncovered the truth, furious that his entire identity was a lie. He told Michael that if he didn't help them have children, he'd tell everyone about the affair, about their mother's betrayal, about all of it. But Michael agreed. He helped them have Rachel. He didn't have a choice. And afterward, the guilt destroyed him. He'd helped his brother, the man who'd blackmailed him, create a child. He'd become complicit in the lies he'd tried to expose. Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now. By the time I got pregnant with you, Michael was falling apart. He couldn't live with what he'd done, what he'd been forced to do. And when David demanded he sign away any rights to you, to the child I was carrying, Michael broke completely. So he killed himself? Yes. And I was left alone, pregnant, grieving, being told by David and Linda that the best thing I could do, for everyone, was give you up and disappear. They pressured you into the adoption. They didn't give me a choice. David made it clear, if I tried to keep you, he'd destroy me. Tell everyone I'd seduced his brother, trapped him into pregnancy, driven him to suicide. He had money, connections, power. I had nothing. She was sobbing now. So I gave you up. I signed the papers. I walked away from the only piece of Michael the first had left, and I've spent 32 years hating myself for it. I sat in that coffee shop for 3 hours after Sarah left. I couldn't move, couldn't think, couldn't process the magnitude of what she'd told me. My father, the man I'd called Dad my entire life, had blackmailed his own brother, had driven him to suicide, had forced a grieving woman to give up her child. And my mother, the woman who'd raised me, loved me, made me who I was, had been complicit in all of it. Everything I knew was a lie, and I had no idea what to do with the truth. I didn't confront my parents immediately. I needed time. Time to process, to verify, to understand the full scope of what Sarah had told me. I needed to be sure, absolutely sure, before I destroyed what remained of my family. So I did what I'd done before. I researched. Harold Ashworth had died in 2003. His estate had been divided among his legitimate children, 3 sons and a daughter from his 40-year marriage to Eleanor Ashworth. There was no mention in any public record of illegitimate children, of affairs, of any scandal that might tarnish the family name. But there were rumors. The internet is full of rumors, and the Ashworths had attracted more than their share. Forum posts from former employees hinting at secret payments. Society columnists who'd noticed Harold's special interest in certain charitable causes that I now realized might have been connected to the children he'd fathered outside his marriage. One name kept appearing, a journalist named Thomas Brennan, who'd been working on an exposé about the Ashworth family before his death in 2015. His notes had never been published, his sources had never been revealed, but his widow was still alive. I found her in a retirement community in Florida. Mrs. Brennan was 83, sharp as a tack, and more than happy to talk about her late husband's work. Thomas was obsessed with the Ashworths, she told me over the phone, said they were hiding more skeletons than a cemetery. He had proof, documents, testimonies, everything. But before he could publish, the family got to him. Got to him how? Lawyers, threats, an offer he couldn't refuse. She laughed bitterly. They paid him off, enough money to retire on, in exchange for his silence. He took the deal, said it was for my protection, spent the rest of his life regretting it. The documents, do you still have them? I have everything. Thomas couldn't bring himself to destroy them. Said maybe someday, when all the players were dead, someone would want to know the truth. I want to know, I said. I need to know. She was quiet for a moment. Why? What's your stake in this? I told her everything about the DNA test, about Sarah, about Michael and David, and the web of lies I'd spent my whole life tangled in. When I finished, she let out a long breath. Well, she said, I guess someday is today. She sent me the files the next morning, 300 pages of documents, interviews, and evidence that Thomas Brennan had spent years compiling. And buried in the middle of it all, exactly what Sarah had described. Harold Ashworth had fathered at least 5 children outside his marriage. 2 had been paid off and sent away. 1 had died young. And two had been given to families in our town, raised as ordinary children, never knowing who they really were. David Harper was one of them. Michael Harper was the other. But there was one more document, one more piece of evidence that Thomas Brennan had found and never published. A birth certificate. Not for David or Michael, for a child born 3 years before me. A child fathered by Harold Ashworth with a woman named Linda Morrison. Linda Morrison, my mother's maiden name. I read that birth certificate 100 times. A child, my mother's child, fathered by Harold Ashworth, born 3 years before me, 3 years before Rachel was born, which meant, no, it couldn't mean what I thought it meant, but the dates aligned, the timeline fit, and suddenly everything made a terrible kind of sense. Rachel wasn't just my half-sister through Michael. Rachel was Harold Ashworth's granddaughter twice over, because her mother had been Harold's lover too. I drove to my parents' house without calling ahead. It was late, after 10, but I couldn't wait. Couldn't spend another night pretending I didn't know what I knew. The truth was burning a hole through my chest, demanding to be spoken. My mother was alone when I arrived. Dad was at some faculty event, wouldn't be back until midnight. Good. I wanted to talk to her first. Needed to understand her role in all of this before I confronted the man I'd called my father. Maya? She stood in the doorway, confused and concerned. Is everything okay? We need to talk. Something in my voice made her step back. She knew. I could see it in her eyes, the recognition, the fear. Come in, she said quietly. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd opened Christmas presents, watched movies, fallen asleep on the couch 1,000 times. It felt like a stage set now, an elaborate fiction designed to hide the truth. I met Sarah, I said. Mom's face went white. She told me everything. About Michael, about why he really died, about how David pressured her into giving me up. Maya, whatever she told you, she told me the truth, which is more than you ever did. It's not that simple. It is simple. You lied to me my whole life. You let me believe I was your daughter, that David was my father, that we were a normal family with normal secrets, but we're not normal. We're a disaster, a cover-up. Mom was crying now. I didn't care. I found the documents, I continued. Thomas Brennan's research, the birth certificate. She went still. What birth certificate? The one that shows you had a child with Harold Ashworth 3 years before Rachel was born. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the sound of my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Where did you find that? Mom whispered. It doesn't matter. What matters is the truth. Did you have an affair with Harold Ashworth? She didn't answer. Mom, did you have his child? Yes. The word fell like a stone into still water. But that child isn't Rachel, is it? No. Then who? Where is this child? Mom buried her face in her hands. Her shoulders were shaking. I was 22 when I met Harold. He was charming, powerful, everything I thought I wanted. I didn't know he was married at first. By the time I found out, I was already pregnant. What happened to the baby? He made me give it up, arranged a private adoption, paid me enough to start over, to pretend it never happened. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. I never knew where the child went. He promised me it would be a good family, a stable home. That was all I could ask for. And then you met David? Yes, a few years later. I didn't know who he was at first. Didn't know he was Harold's son. By the time I found out, we were already in love, already planning a future together. Did David know about your history with Harold? Not at first. I told him eventually, after we were married, after we discovered he couldn't have children. And what did he say? Mom's expression shifted. Something dark flickered across her face. He said it made things even, that we both had secrets, that Harold had taken something from both of us, and together we could take it back. Take it back how? By having children, by building a family that was ours, truly ours, regardless of blood or biology. She laughed bitterly. He was obsessed with it, with proving that family was about choice, not genetics, that he could be a father even if his body couldn't make him one. So he coerced Michael into being a donor? I didn't know about the coercion. Not at first. I thought Michael had volunteered. By the time I understood what David had done, Rachel was already born. It was too late to undo it. And me? When Sarah was pregnant, when Michael killed himself, you just went along with it? I didn't have a choice. Everyone keeps saying that they didn't have a choice. But that's not true. You always have a choice. You just didn't like the alternatives. Maya, you helped David take a woman's child. You raised me on lies. You let me believe I was yours when you knew that my biological mother was out there somewhere, wondering what happened to me. I loved you. I still love you. Doesn't that count for anything? I don't know anymore. I don't know what counts. I don't know what's real. I stood up. I need to know one more thing. The child you had with Harold, the one you gave up, do you know what happened to them? Mom shook her head slowly. I tried to find out, years later, but the adoption was sealed. The records were destroyed. Harold made sure there was no trail. So, somewhere out there, I have another sibling, someone else who doesn't know the truth about where they came from. Maybe. I don't know. I'm sorry, Maya. I'm so sorry for all of it. I walked out without saying goodbye. In the car, I sat for a long time, processing what she told me. A child. My mother's child with Harold Ashworth. My half-sibling. Someone else who'd been erased from the family tree, hidden away to protect the secrets of powerful people. I was going to find them. I had to, because if there was one thing I'd learned from all of this, it was that secrets had a way of destroying everyone they touched, and it was time to bring them into the light. Finding my mother's lost child took 3 months. 3 months of digging through records, bribing clerks, hiring private investigators who specialized in sealed adoptions. 3 months of dead ends and false leads, and moments where I almost gave up. But I didn't give up. I couldn't. That child, my half-sibling, deserved to know where they came from, deserved to have the same chance at truth that I'd been given, however painful that truth might be. The break came from an unexpected source, the Ashworth family itself. Harold's legitimate children had spent decades managing their father's legacy. Part of that management involved tracking the illegitimate children, keeping tabs on them, ensuring they never became a threat to the family name or fortune. One of Harold's sons, William, the eldest, had kept meticulous records. When he died 2 years ago, those records had passed to his daughter, a woman named Catherine, who'd never shared her family's obsession with secrecy. Catherine found me before I found her. "You've been asking questions," she said when she called, "about my grandfather, about the children he fathered outside his marriage." I have. Why? Because I'm one of them, indirectly, and I'm looking for another. She was quiet for a moment. I have information you need, but I want something in return. What? The truth. About my family. About what my grandfather did, what my father helped cover up. I've spent my whole life being told that some questions shouldn't be asked. I'm tired of not asking. We met in person 2 days later. Catherine was my age, polished and professional, with the kind of bearing that came from old money and expensive education. But underneath the composure, I sensed something familiar, the same hunger for truth that had driven me. She brought a folder. Inside was everything I needed. "The child your mother gave up," she said, sliding a document across the table. "My grandfather arranged the adoption through a private agency he controlled. The baby was placed with a family in Connecticut, a couple named the Lawsons." I looked at the paper, a name, an address, a life that had unfolded 300 miles away, completely unaware of its origins. "The child's name was Daniel," Catherine continued. "Daniel Lawson. He's 35 now, works as an architect in New Haven." Does he know? About Harold, about any of this? I don't think so. The Lawsons were paid well to keep quiet. They raised him as their own, and as far as anyone knows, that's who he is. I need to contact him. I thought you might. She pulled out another document, a phone number, an email address, a home address. "This is everything I have. But Maya, be careful. Not everyone wants to know the truth about their family. Some people are happier with the lie." I know, but he deserves the choice. Catherine nodded slowly. "You're right, he does. We all do." I called Daniel that night. I don't know what I expected. Anger, maybe, or denial, or the kind of defensive confusion that I'd felt when I first discovered my own secrets. Instead, I got something I didn't expect at all. "I know who you are," he said when I introduced myself. "I've been waiting for someone like you to call." "You know?" "I took a DNA test 3 years ago, found matches I couldn't explain, started digging. I know about Harold Ashworth. I know about my biological mother. What I don't know is why. Why I was given up. Why it was all kept secret. Why the people who should have protected me chose to hide instead." "I can tell you," I said. "I can tell you everything." "Then come to Connecticut. Come tell me in person." "When?" "As soon as you can. I've waited 35 years for answers. I don't want to wait anymore." Daniel Lawson looked like our mother. I saw it the moment I walked into the coffee shop. The same jawline, the same way of holding his head, the same nervous energy that Linda had always tried to hide. He was a stranger, but he was also unmistakably family. "Maya." He stood when he saw me, and for a moment neither of us knew what to do. Shake hands, hug. We settled for an awkward combination of both. "Thank you for meeting me," I said. "Thank you for finding me." We sat down, ordered coffee we wouldn't drink, and then, for the next 3 hours, I told him everything. I told him about the DNA test that started it all, about Sarah, about Michael, about the web of coercion and lies that had shaped both our lives. I told him about our mother, the woman who'd given him up and then raised me, who'd carried the weight of both losses for 35 years. He listened without interrupting. His face cycled through emotions I recognized: shock, anger, grief, and finally, a kind of exhausted acceptance. "So let me make sure I understand," he said when I finished. "Our mother had an affair with Harold Ashworth and got pregnant with me. She gave me up because Harold forced her to. Then she married David Harper, who was also Harold's illegitimate son, and they had 2 daughters through another of Harold's sons." "Yes." "Which means I'm not just your half-brother through our mother. I'm also connected to the Ashworth family, to Harold, to all of it." Yes. And the man you call your father, David, he knows about all of this? He's been hiding it your whole life? Yes. Daniel leaned back in his chair. His hands were shaking. I need to meet him, he said. What? David, I need to meet him, to look him in the eye and understand how someone could do what he's done. Daniel, I'm not sure that's a good idea. Maybe not, but I've spent 35 years being a question mark, a gap in someone's history. I deserve to confront the people who made me that way. I couldn't argue with that. I'll arrange it, I said, but I should warn you, David isn't the man I thought he was. Whatever you're expecting, it will probably be worse. I'm not expecting anything, Daniel said. I just want the truth, all of it, and then I want to decide what to do with it. We drove to my parents' house together. I hadn't told them we were coming, hadn't warned them about Daniel, about what I knew, about the reckoning that was about to unfold. Part of me felt guilty about that. These were the people who'd raised me, who'd loved me, who'd given me everything they could, even if everything was built on lies. But a larger part of me was angry. Angry at the deception, angry at the coercion, angry at all the lives that had been twisted and damaged by secrets that should never have been kept. It was time for those secrets to end, whatever the cost. The confrontation happened in the living room. My parents were both home, a Sunday afternoon, the kind of lazy day they'd spent together for nearly 4 decades. When they saw me at the door with a stranger, confusion crossed both their faces. Then my mother saw Daniel, and she knew. I watched the color drain from her face, watched her hand go to her mouth, her body sway like she might faint, watched 35 years of denial crumble in an instant. Linda, my father said, alarmed, what's wrong? Who is this? David, I said, stepping into the house, Daniel beside me. This is Daniel Lawson. He's Mom's son, the one she had with Harold Ashworth, the one you both helped hide. The silence that followed was devastating. My father's face went through a transformation I'd never seen before. Confusion, then recognition, then a cold, calculating assessment that made my blood run cold. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Yes, you do. You've always known. You've known about Harold, about Michael, about all of it. You've spent your whole life managing these secrets, using them against people, destroying anyone who threatened to expose them. Maya, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. You blackmailed your own brother into being a sperm donor. You drove him to suicide. You forced Sarah to give up her child, me, and then you raised me on lies. You knew Mom had a child with Harold, and you used that knowledge to control her. That's not how it happened. Then tell me how it happened. Tell me the truth, Dad. For once in your life, tell me the truth. He was quiet for a long moment. I watched emotions war across his face, the instinct to lie, to protect, to maintain the fiction he'd constructed. And then something broke. I did what I had to do, he said, quietly, to protect this family. Protect us from what? From the truth. From the chaos that would follow if everyone knew who we really were. The Ashworths would have destroyed us. They had money, power, lawyers who could make anyone disappear. The only way to survive was to stay hidden, to keep the secrets. Michael didn't stay hidden. He found out, and you destroyed him for it. Michael was going to ruin everything. He wanted to go public, to expose Harold, expose our parents, expose the whole twisted mess. I couldn't let him do that. So you blackmailed him? I convinced him to help. There's a difference. He killed himself, David. He killed himself because of what you made him do. That was his choice, his weakness. I gave him an opportunity to help his family, and he couldn't handle it. Daniel stepped forward. His voice was shaking. And my mother, Linda, did you convince her too? David turned to look at him, really look, for the first time. You look like her, he said quietly, like she did when I met her. Answer the question. Linda and I had an understanding. We both had secrets. We both had things we needed to protect. Our marriage was a partnership, a way of surviving in a world that would have crushed us if we'd faced it alone. A partnership built on lies? Built on necessity. David's voice hardened. You don't know what it was like. Growing up thinking you were one thing, then discovering you were something else entirely. Finding out your whole identity was a fiction. I did what I had to do to make sense of it, to create something real out of the wreckage. And the people you destroyed along the way? Michael, Sarah, Daniel, me? You were loved, David said. All of you. Whatever else happened, you were loved. Love doesn't excuse what you did. No, it doesn't. He sat down heavily. For the first time, he looked old, defeated. But it's all I have to offer. It's been a year since that confrontation in my parents' living room. A year of therapy, of difficult conversations, of slowly rebuilding my understanding of who I am and where I came from. A year of learning to live with truths that would have destroyed me if I'd learned them all at once. My parents are divorced now. My mother filed 2 months after Daniel's appearance, finally free from the partnership that had imprisoned her for nearly 4 decades. She lives alone in a small apartment near the coast, and sometimes Daniel visits her. They're building something. Not quite a mother-son relationship, but something, a connection, a recognition of shared blood and shared loss. My father moved away. I don't know where. I don't want to know. Rachel keeps in touch with him, unable to fully let go of the man who raised her, but I've made my peace with his absence. Some wounds don't heal. Some people don't deserve forgiveness. Rachel and I are closer now than we've ever been. The DNA test that revealed we were only half-sisters also revealed something more important, that family isn't about genetics, it's about choice, about showing up for each other even when everything else is falling apart. She chose me, I chose her, and that matters more than any percentage of shared DNA. Sarah and I talk every week. She's become something like a mother to me. Not replacing the woman who raised me, but filling a different space. A space I didn't know was empty until I found her. Daniel has become the brother I never knew I had. We're alike in ways that surprise me. The same dry humor, the same stubborn streak, the same tendency to ask questions that make everyone uncomfortable. We're both still processing what we learned, still figuring out what it means to be Ashworth descendants in a world that never knew we existed. The tone remains an unexpected ally. She's been working to document her family's history, the real history, including the children Harold fathered and abandoned. She says it's about accountability, about making sure the truth survives even when the people who hid it are gone. I think it's about more than that. I think it's about the same thing that drove me to take that DNA test in the first place, the need to know who we really are. Because here's what I've learned after a year of revelations and reckonings and painful truths. We are not our secrets. We are not the lies our parents told, or the choices they made, or the sins they committed. We are not defined by the circumstances of our birth, or the people who raised us, or the DNA that runs through our veins. We are defined by what we do with the truth once we find it. My parents chose to hide, to protect, to control. They built a life on deception and called it love. I'm choosing something different. I'm choosing honesty, even when it hurts, transparency, even when it's scary, connection, even when it means confronting the ugliest parts of my history. I'm choosing to be the person my biological father might have become if he'd had the courage to face the truth instead of running from it. I'm choosing to be the person my mother, both my mothers, deserved to have in their lives. I'm choosing to be me, not David Harper's daughter, not Linda Harper's daughter, not a collection of secrets and lies and manipulated circumstances, just Maya, a woman who knows where she came from and who gets to decide where she's going. So that's my story. A DNA test, a family secret, a truth we were never supposed to know. But I want to hear from you. Have you ever taken one of those ancestry tests? Did you discover something you didn't expect? I know I'm not alone in this. Thousands of people every year find out their families aren't what they thought. Some of those discoveries are beautiful, some are devastating. Most are somewhere in between. Tell me your story in the comments. Tell me what you found when you went looking for the truth. And if you're thinking about taking a test but haven't yet, if you're standing on the edge of that cliff, wondering whether to jump, I want you to know this. The truth is always worth finding, even when it hurts, especially when it hurts, because the alternative is a life built on someone else's lies, and that's no life at all. I read every comment. I respond when I can, because we're all in this together, trying to make sense of the families we were born into and the families we choose to build. And sometimes sharing our stories is the only way to survive them. They say blood is thicker than water, but I've learned that truth is thicker than blood. It binds us, it defines us, it sets us free, even when it breaks us first. Maya.